Hey, welcome to today's video. I'm Richard Chapo. I'm an internet lawyer in San Diego, California. I represent online businesses. So today, just cutting a quick video on interesting news out of Washington, D.C. We have the proposed COPPA Amendment. So what is COPPA? Well, COPPA is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. It is a federal law that was enacted in 1998. And the short and sweet summary of it is you're not supposed to collect information from kids online who are under 13 unless you have verified parental consent. And there are two standards for determining whether you need to comply. One is if you are targeting kids under 13. So let's say you have a website that's devoted to Dora the Explorer. That audience is typically going to be under 13. The second standard is if you have actual knowledge of kids under 13 on your site. So let's say you run a forum and it's on model trains, and you see a bunch of kids posting, pictures from their first grade class or something of that sort, whatever it is that would be under 13, and then you would have actual knowledge and you would need to go ahead and comply. Now, the interesting thing about COPPA is that the FTC is charged with enforcing it, and to say the enforcement has been lax would be a minor understatement. The joke for those of us in the industry is that the COPPA desk at the FTC building is in the basement covered in dust, and there's an old rotary phone that nobody answers. There just hasn't been much interest in the FTC to go after groups that are not complying with the law. There's been some question about whether it would be challenged on constitutional grounds from a freedom of speech perspective. There's also been some hints that maybe there isn't a budget to do it. Whatever the reason, basically what we've seen for the 20 years of the law is the FTC will pursue one or two cases a year. They're usually obvious violations, and they make a meal of it. There's press releases and press conferences and the whole nine yards, and that happens. And then everybody in the industry, lets out a deep breath because we know that's pretty much it for the year. And see you next year. So it's kind of been an ineffective law, and it's created a conundrum out there because since the FTC doesn't enforce the law very often, most of the businesses who are in that niche are not compliant. And the reason being, as an attorney, you tell your client, well, you need to comply with this law. And they say, well, nobody else is. And you say, well, you could be fined. And they say, well, there's 10,000 apps that are game oriented that kids could be playing. And the FTC has only ever fined 2 apps. I like my chances. And so nobody complies, or very few do. And that's unfortunate because it creates an environment where people are, playing funny with the data of kids. And so the question's always kind of been with COPPA, well, are they ever going to do anything? And the interesting thing is the answer might be yes, whether the FTC wants to or not. So this new amendment, it's a proposed amendment to COPPA, and it's brought by Senators Edward Markey, he's a Democrat out of Massachusetts, and Josh Hawley, he's a Republican in Missouri. And so the thing notable about that is we're talking bipartisan. And if you look at Washington, D.C. these days, there's pretty rarely anything bipartisan. So the fact that we have both a Democrat and a Republican sponsoring this bill suggests that it may have a chance. And what the bill would basically do is it would kind of fill some gaps. So COPPA only applies to kids under 13. This bill would extend that to 15. And they would call them minors. They wouldn't have all the same rights, but fairly similar. There would be a ban on targeted marketing at kids online. Parents would be given opt-out options for forcing companies to stop collecting data on their kids and potentially deleting it. Stricter security requirements would be required for websites, apps, and internet-connected devices to help ensure that kids' information isn't being stolen. And then on top of all this, we have one interesting provision that hasn't received much play, but is actually very interesting to me, and that is the establishment of the Youth Privacy and Marketing Division at the FTC. So this would actually be an entire division at the FTC devoted to enforcing COPPA. And one would assume that it would come with a certain amount of financing as well. And so if we actually got to a point where, this bill passes, we could actually have a legitimate enforcement effort by the FTC in this arena. And quite frankly, once that started, it would be a bloodbath because of all the websites, apps, and what have you that are catering to kids under 13, either because they're directed at them or because they know that there are kids under 13 using their platforms, well, probably 90% are not compliant with COPPA. And so it could get ugly quick. Picture a bunch of great white sharks swimming around in very bloody water, and that's probably what we would be looking at. It would, oh boy, it would be exciting. And so that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Now, obviously, this is a proposed amendment. It's not any kind of sure thing that it's going to become a law. However, again, because it is bipartisan, that certainly makes you think that there's potential here. And if it does, it would certainly represent a major change in privacy law in the arena of kids. And we've also seen similar kind of provisions in Europe with the GDPR and Article 8, which has raised the age for a similar COPPA-like compliance process. So privacy law, again, it's changing radically. If you have a website or an app or some other type of platform that involves the online arena, you need to be paying attention because the world is about to become much more complex. So obviously, if this amendment makes any progress, it looks like it's going to become an actual law or an actual change to COPPA, I'll certainly post another video on it. But anyways, just a heads up that that's floating around out there. Thanks for watching. Have yourself a good one.